I said in the introduction, this is a joint paper with myself and Martina Bertini, who's based at the British Museum down in London. Martina's heavily pregnant at the moment, so she couldn't make it up here. So the story starts with a site on the Isle of Mull, a site called Kilninian, and this is the site here, and you can see it started as a small commercial job where the brief was to do a little bit of building recording of a 19th century barn and then monitor the stripping of the foundations for a new house. And you can see from the aerial photograph there that the site's set within a 19th century township come farmstead. This is a plan, slightly more detail of the area. So this is the barn that was being demolished to make way for a house, and this is the excavation area. And it's actually this archaeology here that we're concentrating on, or starting with the talk today. Basically, the site found under the barn was an unenclosed Iron Age settlement, which in itself is quite a rare find, certainly in Argyll. And the site comprises a number of large pits, so you can see those here. We've got 4 hearths, shown in the brown, and then a number of post holes as well. Within the small area that excavated, it wasn't possible to define an actual structure, but clearly it's an unenclosed settlement site. The finds from the site were typically lacking. In Argyll, we don't seem to get that many finds. Had an iron clasp and an iron object from one of the large pits. Got a few sherds of handmade pottery. Got a fragment of rotary comb from one of the pits. And the most exciting find we got was a glass toggle from one of the hearths. And you can see here, this is a nice picture of the toggle. And if you notice the scale, it's actually really quite a small little toggle. So the archaeological context from which I recovered the toggle was actually a hearth. You can see it's this hearth here. This is it under excavation, and you can see it's a very shallow deposit of ash at the bottom of the hearth. And once I processed the sample, got some carbonised barley grains, and these produced a radiocarbon date at the 95% confidence level of the 2nd century to the 1st century BC. And at the 68% confidence level, the barley grain dates to the second half of the 1st century BC. And you can see that the site tends to be dating from that period. You've got a second radiocarbon date from another half, which is basically coming back as the same date. So the discovery of the toggle in the hearth led obviously to a few initial questions. What was the toggle doing in the ashes of the hearth? Was it dropped? Was it accidentally lost? Or was it being actually made in the fire? And also another question, I didn't really know that much about these toggles, so to what period do they typically belong? Now, a few years ago, I worked with Kilmartin House Museum on a dune site called Ballure in Knapdale. And we found two very similar toggles there, and also a circular spherical glass bead that was perforated. And Ewan Campbell had done a specialist report where he suggested that they maybe belonged to the 1st and 2nd century AD. Subsequently, Kilmartin House got a radiocarbon date, and they actually came back as the 2nd to 1st century BC. So basically the site is contemporary with this site at Kilninian, and starts to give us an indication of maybe the potential date of these toggles. So this is just a little list of basically the sort of knowledge base that we started out from. The most common colour of toggles is aqua, so it's a sort of bluey-green colour. You do get dark blue ones, but they're rarer, and you also get multicoloured ones. Jordan, who's looked at beads and toggles in Ireland, argued that they were made in Ireland, and they were made by indigenous folk, as their distribution of toggles is limited to Ireland, Isle of Man, and mostly Western Scotland, with a few sort of outliers. But the question was, where and by whom were they made? Conventionally, toggles from Ireland and Isle of Man are thought to date to the 1st century BC, 1st century AD, though confusingly they also do occur on medieval sites. And the Scottish ones, I said before, maybe date slightly later, though obviously our radiocarbon dates from Kilninian and Ballure are indicating they're actually probably earlier in date. And because they may be earlier in date, we get a problem where traditionally it seemed that glass, certainly in the first, second century AD, travelled up from southern Britain after the Roman invasion, travelled up land routes to eastern Scotland. But obviously, this is if it is in genuinely first, second century BC dates, these toggles, then that route for the glass travelling up to Scotland is not a viable one. So again, we had to look about how is this glass sourced. And then finally, they are thought to be high status objects, namely because they're rare and they're also recovered from high status sites. So again, Kilninian seems to be an exception to this rule. And this is just to show you the argument for native production. Jordan has done a distribution map from Ireland, and basically they occur down the east and west coast of Ireland. And here I've plotted the ones I could find out about from Scotland. And you can see there's definitely a bias around the sort of Argyll, North Channel region here, with a number of outliers. Okay, so as part of our work that we've done, Martina did some initial analysis on the Kilninian bead, which we'll talk about in more detail. And based on her knowledge of glass making and the analysis of the toggle, she came up with this as a drawing about how to make your own toggle. And this is, you have your little hearth, you have a thing called a pontle, which is an iron rod, which you heat up your chunks of glass, plunge your pontle into the glass, and then as you hold the glass over the fire, you have to continually twisting the pontle so the glass doesn't drop off the end, and you heat it up, and as you can see, you go through the process of using, which obviously must be an incredibly small pair of tongs, to shape your toggle. And eventually, when you're ready and you're happy with the shape of it, you put a little bit of water on the end, give it a bit of a dunt, and it falls off. Now, significantly, for our work here, is this thing called the pontle scar. And that's a scar on the glass which exists when you knock it off. It's where the metal rod is joined to the glass. So, when I first recovered the toggle from the hearth, you can see that the toggle's got a very prominent pontle scar. Whereas other toggles, this is one from Ballure, there's this other toggle from Ballure, and then there's one from Dunfin, which is a site in Kintyre. Minimal pontle scar on this one, and then you can see totally ground away on these ones. The idea is that once you've made your toggle, clearly you don't want to have rough glass on your toggle to get caught up in your hair or on your clothing or however these things are used. So the person who were making the toggles will grind the pontle scar away so that they'd be suitable for wear. So one of the first things I thought of was, well, maybe this shows that actually this toggle was made in the hearth at Kilninian. Unfortunately, when we went through the retent, there were no droplets of glass, so it was a bit of a kind of leap of faith to say it was actually made in this hearth. So we needed to do some more work. And when we were discussing it, we both realised neither of us knew that much about toggles. So what we decided to do was try and see if we could look at some more toggles from Scotland. And very kindly, Hunterian lent us their whole collection, and as did Carmarthen Museum, and also the Isle of Mull lent us their 4 toggles as well. As a private museum up in Skye lent us their toggle. And Martina's done some analysis on these toggles. Basically, what we're trying to do is determine how they were made and where the glass was sourced from. Now, I'm not going to go into great detail about Martina's work because it's incredibly technical and a bit beyond me, so it's all very simplified, the results. But basically, she did a chemical fingerprinting of the glass. And that revealed that 14 of the 15 toggles we analysed comprise the same basic soda lime silica, or natron glass, and so therefore it's very likely to be broadly from the same period. She's also showed from analysis of other glasses and other people's work, compared to her analysis of our toggles, that the glass originated from Eastern Mediterranean coastal sands. And the glass was used in a form of cullet, which is basically tiny little scraps of fragments of glass. And these fragments of glass were originally derived from everyday glassware in the Mediterranean region of the 1st, 2nd century BC. Basically bottle glass. They've been broken and then the glass is recycled. No, hang on, we could have a mouse, no. Does that play? Sorry, no, wrong one. Should be, here we go, there it is. Okay. What Martina's also done is looked at the internal structure of the toggle, and she used a methodology called focus stacking of images, which is used taking photographs at high magnification of the bead, of the toggle, to see if she could work out how the toggle was actually made. And if I just play this through, you'll see that the toggle comprises, you can see there's numerous numbers of small bead bubbles within, on the exterior and within the toggle. And what these small bubbles show is that the toggle was actually made from 4 separate pieces of glass that were moulded together. You'll also notice these long bubbles, and this shows how the toggle was made. You can see they're elongated, the bubbles are elongated, and that's when it went from a spherical lump of glass into the toggle shape, and it was actually dragging out these bubbles that are basically gases trapped amongst and between the fragments of glass, gases produced in the fire. And what this work has shown, which is really significant, I think, is that you can still identify the 4 separate fragments of glass, and clearly the glass toggle was actually made in a relatively low temperature fire, such as you get on a domestic hearth. And Martinez did some experimental work and showed it's perfectly possible to make a toggle like this on a low temperature hearth. So the glass never really melted into one piece. It still maintained its 4 fragments, even though they were melded together. And significantly, the same methodology of manufacture can be seen in all the toggles we've looked at. So this is one from the Isle of Mull. You can see the separate pieces of glass, and you can see the gas bubbles trapped within the toggle. So again, it's the use of cullet and this low temperature manufacture. So you don't need a specialised furnace or a specialised site to make toggles. You maybe need specialised kit, but you can carry that with you. The same thing with this one from Northern Ireland. Nice blue glass toggle, but there are actually separate pieces of glass from different bottles making up that toggle. So again, it's recycled Mediterranean bottle glass. The one from Isle of Skye is quite interesting in that blue glass in the Mediterranean was rarer than aqua glass, and it was certainly the case, well, almost certainly the case up in Scotland. It would be seen as a very exotic colour to have, and obviously desirable to have the best. And this is a bit of a cheat here, in that they've used blue glass in the interior, and they've used almost transparent aqua glass on the outside. So initially you look at the toggle and you think, oh, that's a very posh blue glass bead. It's a bit of a cheat, they've used both types of glass. So we've demonstrated the glass originated in the, oh sorry, hang on, right, okay. Notice this black material here. Now, initially I thought that was just charcoal adhering to the outside of the toggle from the hearth. But it turns out, again, Martina did analysis on this, and it turns out to be pure iron. I'll just play through again. Now, you'll notice when it goes through the sequence that this iron material occurs in amongst all the glass and within the glass and along the edges of the separate fragments of glass. And basically this whole toggle is made up of a material called moil, which is the glass that gets left on your pontals, your metal rod. When you knock off an object, you still get glass adhering to the metal rod. And what they've done here, whoever made this bead on the Isle of Mull, has collected together 4 pieces of this moil, so it's recycled waste glass almost, to make the toggle at Kilninian. You also note from here that the toggle is not particularly spherical, it's not particularly well made. So coupled with the fact that it's made from moil, it wasn't particularly well crafted, and we found it in the ashes of a hearth, it's possible that what we've got here is maybe an apprentice piece, somebody getting taught how to make a toggle. They've lost it in the hearth, and they've maybe had a cursory look for it and just thought, oh, well, never mind. It's just, really, really recycled, knackered glass, so we'll just forget about it. And that maybe explain why we've got it surviving and it's not being recovered from the ashes. Just let that finish on, you can put one to that. And you do get larger, more elaborate toggles. So you can see these two from County Antrim in Ireland. They seem, well, certainly better made than the Kilninian one. And you can see this one here is a beautiful multicoloured one, even though, again, it's the basic same glass as the other toggles. It could be that in Ireland they're commissioning nicer toggles, or it could be that we've just not found them quite so elaborate as this over here in Scotland. Right, so Martinez demonstrated the glass originated in the Mediterranean, and got quite a good date, I think, for the production of that toggle at Kilninian to the second half of the 1st century BC. And that date's backed up by excavations at Ballure. So, it's like I said before, I don't think the glass would have come up up through mainland England into Scotland via land route, and it's much more likely, probably, certainly given the distribution of them, to come up maritime routes. And I know John Henderson, in his book, I think 2007, looking at Atlantic Iron Age, says that there's not that much evidence, but what evidence there is looks like there are maritime trade routes coming up the Irish Sea. And I think what the distribution of these toggles demonstrates is, I don't think there's direct, whoever were making these toggles, whether it be an individual or a number of individuals, I don't think they had direct contact with the Mediterranean to get this glass. It obviously came up a number of different hands. But it was getting imported somehow up into our area. And obviously how to work glass is quite an early date we've got for this. The knowledge and how to make these things was obviously coming up from the continent as well. But I also think this is probably illustrates local and regional trade routes as well, mostly maritime ones. So, who were the toggles made for? This is just a nice image. This is the Ballure Dune. The main wall here had a really lovely hearth, massive great thing. And then you can see various outworks. And there, it's quite an impressive site. This is where we've got 2 toggles and a spherical bead. Other sites, this is Dune Fin, one of the dark blue beads showed you earlier was from here, and this is the dune on Skye. It appears that toggles recovered in Scotland predominantly come from Atlantic roundhouses, so dunes, forts and rocks. So Kilninian is the exception. The 2 sites on the Isle of Man, they're both Iron Age roundhouses, and sites in Ireland are slightly different, and a lot of the toggles seem to come from burials, but some from settlement and some from royal centres. So Kilninian, we've got the toggle being made here, and what I'm suggesting is that we have itinerant craftspeople making these items, and they're probably making other things as well, not just glass toggles, they're probably making other objects, desirable objects. And maybe they are travelling around this region peddling their wares. And it could be that they've received a commission for maybe one of these numerous dunes or forts that's actually near Kilninian. They've gone to the local unenclosed, probably less high status settlement, and they've sought lodgings there, and they're using one of the domestic fires on that settlement to make wares that they've been commissioned for maybe one of the, dare I say it, middle classes living on the Isle of Mull. So finally, how are these toggles used? Well, Dune Fin this is the waste of the toggle. It's got this residue here. Unfortunately, the labs in the British Museum are 6 floors down, and Martina, being heavily pregnant, she's not allowed to walk down all the stairs for health and safety. So unfortunately, she's not being able to analyse this, but we do hope to do that soon. But maybe it is a bit of leather that was wound round to wear as a necklace. One toggle's been found in Ireland that appears to have been worn as a necklace. There's an idea they may have been worn in the hair or on clothing as well. This is one from Isle of Mull. You can see it's got a really nice smooth waist. Now whether that's smooth because of wear of, say, some leather around it, or whether it's just been protected from later pitting of the glass, you can see it's pitted here, I don't know, but it looks like something was wound round the waist. Interesting, another one from the Isle of Mull, actually almost is mimicking maybe something as they were used, something round the waist of the toggle. So to conclude, aqua and blue glass of the toggles comprises recycled glass which originated in the Mediterranean. The glass was traded and acquired in the form of coloured. The Canina glass toggle was produced on Mull on a domestic site in the second half of the 1st century BC. The glass toggle was made in low temperature fires, so purpose-built furnaces were not required. And I think it's really significant because at the moment we don't really have production sites, but maybe don't have major central production sites. You're getting these travelling craftspeople making them as they move around the country. And so toggle distribution indicates a western seaboard traditional fashion and probably reflects existing local and regional maritime trade routes. And finally, craftspeople, very probably itinerant, manufactured the toggles and may well have peddled their wares in Ireland, Isle of Man and Western Scotland. Thank you.